I'm trying my absolute best not to show y'all all my business, but I also insist on not doing this in other than around the house clothes. Okay, I figured the least I could do was go and put on some bloomer shorts for y'all, so you don't have to worry anymore, okay? So this is a list of all the books that I have read January through the end of June. I figured I'd do another one of these, you know, when we finish the year out. So grab your cup of tea, your cup of coffee. Now, I gotta go ahead and give you a heads up for the first book that I read this year. It was a really bad way to start off my year, starting with this book. And if you like this book, sorry, because honestly, there may be some books that I just rave about and you may not like either. Jhordan from the future here. I just wanted to come in and say that I plan on doing a part 2 of this video. My sincerest apologies also for this video being super late. This past year has just been the most insane. Number one, us buying a new house. My work-life balance was in the absolute toilet, and so I think this year I'm just kind of trying to find my footing and see what works best with me, because I definitely want to contribute to this channel. I will say though, going back through and editing this was actually the perfect time to post it, because in this I'm talking about books I'm reading during the winter, reading for Valentine's Day, and then so on. So it's literally the time that we're in now, the books that I'm talking about, so I almost feel like it couldn't be more perfect. But hope you guys enjoy it. I'm gonna leave you alone now. The first book that I read this year, and I don't believe that I read a physical copy of it. I want to say I read it on my Kindle. Thank goodness, because I don't want that book to take up any space in this home. Okay, I already don't have enough room for books. We don't need to. Yeah, that book is a big boy, and so for it to give what it didn't give. First book that I'm talking about is Quicksilver, and honestly I should have known. So the book is by Callie Hart, and I had never read a book by her before, and I didn't realize what type of book she wrote until I finished the book. Like, I was going to review the book, and then I see all the other books written by Callie Hart. She's got a lot of them, and it's, let me paint the picture for you. It's the books with like the man's 12-pack abs in the front like this, and he's gleaming or sweaty or something like that. Not my kind of book. So I don't think she normally writes fantasy. It was focused on fae and alchemy, which I love a good fae book, okay? I find it hard to find a good fae book, but I do, when it's good, okay? I love escapism. The world is crazy enough. Give me fantasy. I don't want to be here right now. So yeah, occasionally I like to dabble in that, and so I was really excited to read that one. I will say the book had a lot of potential. I like that they brought in alchemy into the book. I feel like that's not something I've read a lot about. So this book follows the main character, Cyrus Fane. She's 24 years old. She ends up coming across a fae world. So I think in her current reality, magic isn't even really a thing, or it was something that disappeared like a long time ago. Look, I read this book 6-7 months ago, but she does end up stumbling into this world simply because of the pure fact that she herself is an alchemist. It's a romantasy. Of course she meets a man. He's very rugged with her. He's very just like, does not care if she is dead or alive. He's mean, okay? Whenever a book starts out like that, you can tell clearly they're going to end up together. I think that's just one of the reasons this book did not do it for me. I was reading this book like, am I supposed to be crazy about this man? Because I'm not feeling it. Like, I don't even know how they got to point A and to point B. I feel like they had sex and they were in love. Another thing that I didn't really like about the book, the world building was just not there. It felt like the author threw in everything they could throw in as far as fantasy goes. I did not feel like I was escaping, and that's what I look for in a fantasy book. I ended up rating that one 2 stars. It got 2 stars literally because I finished. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're gonna go to the next one. I'm very sorry to start out on such a negative note, but I'm going in order, and unfortunately that is how my year begun. So that is how your video is gonna begin. You gotta suffer too. Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. So this is actually the second book in the series Legendborn. Now, I've been holding out. I've been trying to wait till like fall, December, sometime when I know like I need a good fix, because I really enjoy Tracy Deonn and her writing. And so I don't want to give anything away, because I feel like if you have not read the series, the first book you're gonna learn some things about her. So I can't talk about this book too much, but Bree does find out that she has magical powers, and she actually inherited them from her mother, who unfortunately has passed at this point. And so to get closer to her mother, in the first book, she ends up going to the same school as her. And her mother, before she passed, she knew that Bree wanted to go to that school, and she was like, I just do not want you going to that school. So she was like, I'm gonna go anyway, because this is a piece of my mother that I did not know, so I want to discover it for myself. Turns out her mother had a little secret. Her mother has some magic that has been passed down through her blood lineage. So this book actually ties into slavery a little bit, and the way they touch on that ancestry is just so beautiful. There were points, I want to say in this book particularly, where I had tears. But if you love a fantasy book and you're looking for something a little different, Tracy Deonn, she's an amazing writer, and I cannot wait to read her next book, Little Women. And I actually started this book last year, but I think I kind of just took a little pause on it, and then I ended up finishing it this year, and I enjoyed this book thoroughly. I think I've been wanting to read this book since I was in elementary school. It's just such a breath of fresh air. Now I will say, as far as classics go, this one wasn't super dense. I feel like that's something you come across a lot of times with the classic. Let's just say, like, back then they were using their words, which I can appreciate, but the way this writer just made me feel like I was a part of this family. I was rooting for all four of these sisters. It had very heavy themes of family and especially sisterhood, because it follows four sisters that could not be any more different. So it takes place during the Civil War time, and they are actually located in New England. And I will say, they didn't really tap heavy into what was going on with the war. It was really just focusing on the family, because at this time their father ends up having to leave because of the war. He is a part of the Union. Before he left, they were kind of, I'd say, like an average family, middle class family. As we all know, during those times, money was a little harder to come by. They just found themselves having to sacrifice more than they normally do. And it just showed how all of them were contributing during this time. It didn't sugarcoat anything. You see the selfish moments that these little women have. You see the moments where they're caring and giving and want to look after their family. It was just such a sweet book. And honestly, I think my favorite character was the mom. She was dropping gems, honestly, throughout this book, because there's just so many quotes that I feel like you could apply to life today. They were just girls even then. But just coming across one of them, it reads, Jo's ambition was to do something very splendid. What it was, she had no idea, but left it for time to tell her, and meanwhile found her greatest affliction in the fact that she couldn't read, run, and ride as much as she liked. And since I highlighted the mother and her wisdom, this is a quote where she is talking to her girls, and I want to say they're getting to the point where they're looking at prospects for marriage. You know, marriage was kind of essential at this time, but I feel like even in this book it shows the women who get married and the women who sometimes are not as apt to want that. You know, not every woman wants that. So it does cover that, but the mom is just sharing her piece of wisdom. And she says, my dear girls, I am ambitious for you, but not to have you make a dash in the world, marry rich men merely because they are rich, or have splendid houses, which are not homes, because love is wanting. Money is a needful and precious thing, and when well used, a noble thing. But I never want you to think it is the first or only prize to strive for. She had bars. Okay, absolute bars. Loved this book. I actually rated this one a 5-star for me. It was an enjoyable read, didn't fall flat really at any point. I liked seeing the different angles of 4 different women. It does have a little bit of sadness in it, but even still a feel good, nice read. So I was on a little bit of a classic train at the time. I went ahead and picked up my first Dostoevsky book. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He is a Russian writer, but I heard if you want to get into him, this is one of the better books to start with, just because it is so short. I read this while it was still winter time, literally called White Nights. So it's a very winter setting, very melancholic, also kind of lonely to me. I picked up this book because I heard that it just gave the definition of yearning. And so I picked it up thinking that there would be like a little bit of romance. Like, I don't really like contemporary romances all that much sometimes. I have maybe a couple on this list, maybe one on this list. When I heard that this book was full of yearning, they did not exaggerate, because that's all this is yearning. It's literally a man wanting what he cannot have. Like, major friend zone. I felt sorry for this poor man. He was already pretty lonely, and so to meet this woman who he just would do anything for and wanted so badly. Also, the amount of times that this man said Nastenska, however you say her name, I was like, oh my gosh, stop saying this lady's name. I think even she said, like, why do you keep saying my name? Even she mentioned in the book, and I was already feeling this way, she was like, you are so long-winded, sir. He, really romanticized in the way that he spoke. I feel like we definitely lack that nowadays. But he was one of those people that is going to tell you a story and just tells you every piece of it. Some of it's unnecessary, and you're just like, when are we getting to the point? It wasn't awful. It's just, I think I went into it thinking it was going to be one thing, because everybody was saying like, oh, yearning, like, yeah, yearning to the point of friend zone. It was sad to me. I think if you want to get into him, just go in not expecting a beautiful relationship, I'd say, or even a beautifully flawed relationship. You're not getting that. So I ended up rating this one a 3.5. Okay, next on my list, I read This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno, and it is a horror thriller type of book. I don't have it with me because I read the physical version, but I borrowed it from my boyfriend. He read it first, and he was like, I think you would like it, because he knows I like little creepy things. And again, without giving too much away, it follows the main character who recently lost his wife, and so he feels like at this point he is being haunted by his wife, not in a bad way, like he sees little signs of her there, but at a certain point it gets to where he's not so sure it's his wife. The way that he thinks his wife would haunt him or try to show signs of her being present, it's not that. Like, it starts out subtle, and it's just like, I'm actually not sure if this is my girl. I don't think she would do me like this. So this book is very haunting, eerie. It gets kind of in the spiritual realm. It was a little scary, okay? I think I remember not reading the book when I was alone. I was like, some of this is getting to me a little bit, especially because it talks about kind of like what our Alexa is, but it's not Alexa. And so when you tie in scary things like to something that I can relate to that's in my home, if I hear my Google Home go off randomly while reading this book, I'm gonna freak out. It was a good, quick little read, kind of just talking about grief, the loneliness of it all, almost to the point where it's kind of scary, at least in his scenario. So I rated this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you guys know Kalila, she recommended this one on maybe her Instagram story or some Instagram reel that she did a long time ago, and it was around February when I read this book. It's called When in Rome. It is by Sarah Adam. Valentine's Day was coming up, so I was like, let's find a little cutesy read. I listened to When in Rome on audiobook. It's definitely entertaining. I feel like books like that, I prefer to listen to them on audiobook so I can do other things. So the book follows the main character, who's actually a pop star. I've never read a book anything like this, I don't think. And it kind of really reminded me of Hannah Montana. I was a diehard Hannah Montana Miley Cyrus fan. Feels like she's kind of lost like her sense of normalcy. She's being worked to death. She's getting ready to go on tour, which when they go on tour, that's like non-stop traveling. You're not getting any time alone. She's kind of spiraling as far as that goes because she's already burnt out. And so she is like, you know what? I'm about to turn off my phone, turn off my location, bump my manager. I'm about to go on a little road trip. I'm gonna put some gas in my old little beater car from high school, and we're gonna take a little road trip. And so I think she finds herself, I want to say, somewhere in Tennessee, Kentucky, but she does end up staying in this small town. And so it's kind of like the Miley Cyrus side of the Hannah Montana. When Miley's going back to her roots and she's realizing, I love being a country girl after all. That's pretty much what this main character is going through. It's very cute, it's very sweet, it has all the little small town vibes, which honestly I'm learning that I think I love. So I'm definitely going to be looking for something else kind of like that, the little small town, slow living, cutesy little romance book. But yeah, I liked her. It was enjoyable. I think it also could be a good little summer read, quick and easy. I ended up rating this one a 3-star out of 5. I feel like that's an average rating for me. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was cute and it was fun. So that's, yeah, I liked it. One of the most interesting books I have read this year, Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. When I was reading this book, I was telling everyone about this book, okay? I had my whole entire family read it. My mom and dad have listened to it on audiobook. I told my clerk at Trader Joe's to read the book. Clearly, I'm trying to torment people. So read this book at your own risk. But this book follows a 15-year-old girl named Lauren. It's funny because I want to say this book was written in the 90s, but it takes place in the future. So it is considered a sci-fi book. But the science fiction wasn't hitting hard enough for me as far as the fact that it felt a little too close to home. Unfortunately, I felt like this book could be nonfiction one day if these people actually existed. I believe I talked about it quite a bit in the last vlog that I posted up here, which, mind you, I posted that months ago. But I got a lot deeper into it and probably was able to share my thoughts more clearly because I was freshly reading it. But it shows her going through life in the years, I want to say 2023, 2025, like past, I think it gets to like 2028 or something like that. All I remember is it went past the years that we're actually dealing with. And I feel like that's when it got creepier for me, and the way that our country is going right now, the state of the world in general. I was like, oh, I'm starting not to like this. This book had me thinking maybe I need to have a backpack ready to go in my home at all times. If I need to hit the road, if I need to have some matches on me, some flashlights, some firearms. Apparently the author did a whole bunch of research to even write this book, and so that's why she was able to kind of figure out where the United States would go based on where our government's decisions were going to lead us, kind of the early stages of what we're dealing with now. Not to scare anybody, I definitely never want to scare anyone. Yeah, read at your own risk. I wouldn't say good as in enjoyable, but very interesting. So I actually ended up rating this one a 5-star as well. Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. So this is only the second Sally Rooney book that I have read. The first one that I read was, I feel like, the classic starter if you're going to read Sally Rooney, which is Normal People. It seems to me with Sally Rooney, you're either going to love her style of writing or you're going to hate it. I feel like I haven't really met people that feel completely in between about her. And it follows two brothers. I believe their names are Peter and Ivan. One brother is in the corporate world, very much a shark, takes what he wants, a go-getter type of guy, at least in the eyes of his brother. And the other brother is a chess player. So he's not just a regular chess player, he is a competitive chess player. He's super hyper focused on it, and he's a bit socially awkward. So very opposite from his brother, obviously. It just kind of follows their dynamic as brothers. They do have some family issues going on. I feel like I'm reading a lot of books where someone has lost someone. They are dealing with the loss of their father at the moment, and they unfortunately do not always get along. It shows Ivan's side of things, and on Peter's end, he also is dealing with his own relationships outside of his brother. Really enjoyed Ivan, the chess player's point of view / story more. I enjoyed both, but there was just something about him. Like, I don't know if I found him more relatable or it just felt so raw on that end, but I really enjoyed this book. I would say, as far as Sally Rooney, it's not the place to start with her. I think Normal People was a better place to start. But yeah, I liked it. I don't know which one I'm going to read next. If you have a suggestion on where I should go next, let me know. But I rated this one 4.5 stars. Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I think that's how you say his name. But this book holds a very special place in my heart because it kind of put me onto my sci-fi train for the year. I feel like ever since I read this book, I have been so head over heels for sci-fi. And I'm still to this day looking for more suggestions. So of course, this book takes place in space. It follows this teacher. He's kind of genius level teacher. Anyways, he is chosen to go on the mission called Project Hail Mary. And the mission is all about saving planet Earth. If he goes on this mission and he fails, pretty much we have seen the last of planet Earth. So everything is on this man. Now he wakes up on this spaceship in the middle of space, light years away from his home Earth, and he finds that he doesn't remember a thing. This man doesn't even remember his name. I think they write this book in a way where we kind of find things out as he finds things out. So we're like, you know, what's going on? Now he is not completely alone on this spaceship technically. He has 2 crewmates, but when he goes to check on them and gets off his own bed and pulls himself away from his own feeding tube, he finds that they are both dead. Can you imagine? That is actually really scary. I don't even think he realizes that he's on a spaceship. Which, fair, if you don't remember anything, why would you think this big white room is a spaceship, you know? So there is a potential that he has to save planet Earth all alone, possibly all alone. Yeah. Again, this is another one where you just have to read it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's honestly got me wanting to read The Martian, which this author also wrote. So if you read The Martian, let me know if it's worth the read, because right now I'm heavily intrigued by all sci-fi. And so I rated this one a 5-star. It's not like anything that I have read before, given that I don't really normally read sci-fi, so that's not saying much, but I just really thoroughly enjoyed this one. Sarah J Maas's book herself, Heir of Fire. So I've been working on the Throne of Glass series. I want to say I started it probably the beginning of last year. I'm one of those people, I don't really binge series like that. The Throne of Glass series, they say that it is better. It blows ACOTAR out of the water. So like, I'm not really mad at this series so far, but I haven't gotten to that point where everybody's like, oh, like it's way better than ACOTAR. Like I said, when I read fantasy, I like to escape, and I don't really feel like I'm escaping with this book, you know, like I'm still here on planet Earth. And with this one, I don't know, it just feels a little too normal for me so far. It's getting there. Like I can see that we're getting there, but I'm personally not there yet. But I want to say that they say after this book it revs up more, which is kind of crazy that you have to read what, 3-4 of these books in the series to get to the point where it's like worth your while. It follows the assassin Selena. I want to say at this point she's like 18 years old, because you know in fantasy books we dealing with fresh adults, okay? You know how it goes. I'm 27 and apparently I'm too old to be seen scaling a wall and being an assassin in a fantasy book. It has revved up a little bit. It's looking like it could definitely get a little more interesting. I don't do spoilers. And so I just don't want to tell you too much, just in case you haven't even read the first one, because if I talk too much about this book, that will give you way too much. But yeah, I'm going to continue the series. I plan on finishing it. I'm just not so sure about the high accolades that it has received, but I could be wrong. Maybe I might change my mind when I read the next book. So I rated this one 3 stars out of 5. So pretty average rating. Not mad at it. Didn't change my world. Just, it was cool. Okay, next book we have is Daisy Haites by Jessa Hastings. So this one is the second book out of the Magnolia Park series. Started reading Daisy Haites, I want to say last year, after I had finished Magnolia Parks, and I kind of like stopped. I didn't keep going, and it wasn't because like the book isn't good or anything like that. I just get easily annoyed with certain tropes, if you will. Honestly, the things that were going on in this book and in Magnolia Parks, it's something that gets on my nerves in the real world. So naturally, if I'm reading about it, that would also get on my nerves. But this whole series feels very Gossip Girl. It surrounds this group of elites that are located in the UK. And so instead of following Magnolia like we did in the first book, we are following Daisy Haites. And she is basically the child and sister of drug lords, I would say. So she is in the mix. She's low-key in a gang, but an extremely wealthy and intimidating one. So it follows Daisy and her love life, also her complicated relationship with her brother and what he does for a living. They lost their parents. He was basically responsible for the business, and he was also now responsible for his baby sister, Daisy. They have both seen some very traumatic things, especially with Daisy being as young as she is. There's times where I am rooting for her and what seemingly is the chosen partner for her. And then there's times where they are getting on my absolute nerves. But I'm one of those people, I get very annoyed in situations where people are having a back and forth with like one person. It's like, do you want to be together or do you not want to be together? I'm that friend, if you're going through that, like I'll listen, but there's a certain point where I get to it, I'm just like, why are we dealing with this still exactly? Like, it just sounds very toxic, the back and forth. Break up and never talk to each other again. And so I hear that the series just gets better and better. I would say when I first read it, I think I read like a quarter of it, and then when I finally got back to it, that's when I started reading it a lot faster, because I started enjoying kind of like the last 3/4 of it more than the first fourth part. But yeah, I actually am excited to continue reading the series. I think we're going to be getting back to Magnolia Parks after this one, because so far I do kind of have a preference for Magnolia's storyline over Daisy's storyline. This one, 3.5 stars out of 5. Okay, editing Jhordan here. This is my second day of editing this video, and it also is the same day where I happened to look at a book podcast, which I never really listen to book podcasts. Tell me why I literally see in the comments, not just a Hastings book, it's giving racist. And I was like, what? You guys, I am the most unplugged, like, my boyfriend will literally say I'm the most chronically offline social media person like you will ever know. I found out there's a bunch of controversy with her, and I say that to say, not like don't go read her or something like that. I did go into like a personal story in reference to the author, which I ended up just taking out. Also because I'm not really necessarily trying to trigger anybody, but I also wanted to share, like, on this channel, this isn't going to be a regular thing for me where I take out a book or I take out an author because they may be like triggering for somebody. And this is my personal opinion. I just feel like once you start kind of censoring books like that, it defeats the purpose of free will in reading. Over the past couple of years, I've discovered I'm a person that's just not a big fan of cancel culture, only because I feel like there's no grace. Like, it doesn't matter what that person does or how they apologize, people never actually forgive. I just feel like often people like to put people's head on a stake and love to point fingers and like point out a bad guy rather than actually receive justice or come to some mutual understanding. I don't know. It's a very nuanced conversation that I'm not about to have like right now in the middle of this book review, because I can go for days, okay? I'm a person who enjoys books about flawed characters. Books that have flawed characters, they're going to have flawed authors as well. Like, we're just not gonna find anybody that's perfect. But I say that to say, like, I'm interested in reading all thoughts and points of view. With me just even reading classics, those people didn't have Twitter back then, but who's to say, like, they didn't feel a certain way about certain people. I'm not defending that at all. All I'm saying is I'm not gonna be that person that's sitting there trying to find the wrongdoings of every author that I'm reading. I'm reading for the love of the game. It's something I've loved since I was a little child. I just thought that was crazy. I was like, woo. But yeah, just letting you know, I know. And I took out the fluffy things that I said about the author, because I will say now, knowing the things I know, I don't feel as fluffy about the statements. But I'm also not like, well, I'm wiping this book from the content, you know. We're gonna have a short list of what we're able to read if we really do the research on everybody. We're just not gonna find like a perfect author. A lot of time authors, I feel like, are the people who are probably the craziest, and that's why they're putting it on paper. I was really big on writing as a kid, and that's why I say that, like, I was kind of crazy. I needed to get that junk out. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. These books are actually sci-fi as well. I wasn't very intrigued. I was definitely judging a book by its cover. I mean, I don't really know what the cover is giving. It's not a bad cover, it's just like, it wasn't pulling me. I wasn't gravitating towards it, but I ended up renting the first book from the library, and so after I rented the first book from the library, I literally went and bought the whole entire series. And this is not the entire series. I think there's like 5 or 6 books, which I have those as well, but these are just the ones that I've read so far, and I'm on the 4th one right now. I'm kind of at a standstill right now with the 4th one. Follows the character Darrow, who is a red in this book, and the book is categorized by like a hierarchy into colors. So the highest of the high, gold, we have browns, we have silvers, greens, pink. Absolute bottom is red. And so we follow the character Darrow, who is navigating, trying to overthrow this type of hierarchy. He comes across this society, and this society basically wants him to help overthrow the golds by infiltrating them. And when he comes across them, he realizes his whole life he has been lied to. They are told that currently Earth is in a state where people won't be able to survive much longer on there. It's looking really ugly, obviously, because of global warming and things like that, climate change. And so they are the pioneers to get Mars ready. They're going through some rough things. They're kind of hungry sometimes, they're rationing, they are putting in the hard work so people can live a better life one day. And that's what he's brought up to believe, just to find out that that is absolutely not the case, and there's a whole world of other colors that are living better than him and his family and his people. Imagine how mad you would be finding out that you've just been absolutely lied to and you've been handed the absolute shortest end of the stick. So it just follows his journey of him infiltrating them and trying to cause change so that everybody can live more equal and more fair and things like that. And so the first book was good. It was a great start. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars. The second book was even better. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. And then I got to the third book, Morning Star. I gave this one 5 stars. Like, when I tell you, so far this series has just been going absolutely up. Like, if you thought the last book was good, you're really gonna be in it in the next one. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, I'm taking a pause on the 4th book right now just because I'm not really in a sci-fi mood. I'm a mood reader, but I will keep you posted on it. But if you're looking for a series to devour and get into, Red Rising is definitely the one you need to be looking at. Okay, next book is Last Summer in the City. I actually read this one while I was on vacation, so I was looking for a very summery vacation type of read. And so when I found this one, I'm like, okay, this literally says Summer in the City, and I've been wanting to read this for like a year or two now, and so I was like, this is the time. It is by Gianfranco Caligaric, something like that. And one thing about the Italians is they know how to write a lazy, hazy days of summer type of book. And so that's exactly what I was looking for. This is another book that just had like a lot of really good quotes that I enjoyed. I kept my pen on me. It was very beautifully written. It follows the main character, Leo. He doesn't really know what he wants in life. I want to say he's in his 30s and he's surrounded by all of these adult friends who know exactly what they want. A lot of them are wealthy, they have families, they're starting to have kids, and so he's kind of seeing himself fall behind all of these people. And so what I thought was going to be a very Summer in Rome type of book, it was definitely in Rome, but it was a little more, actually a lot more depressing than I thought it would be. I still really enjoyed the journey, kind of just like being standoffish to the idea of becoming one of these high functioning adults who have all these responsibilities. He's bouncing from job to job, he's borrowing money, he's sleeping on couches, and he doesn't really plan to change that. It also of course follows his love relationships that he finds himself in. While they are not perfect, they are definitely poetic and interesting to read about. It kind of puts me in the mind of one of my absolute favorite books, Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. So if you're looking for that same type of feel, I feel like this book has it, and it's definitely one that you want to read in the summer, but don't expect it to be a happy summer read. So I ended up rating this one 4 stars. One of the quotes that I really loved in the book, "She's beautiful, my dear, and beautiful people are always unpredictable. They know that whatever they do, they'll be forgiven. It's even better than being rich, because beauty, my dear, never has a whiff of struggle or effort about it, but comes directly from God. And that's enough to make it the only true human aristocracy." Even on this page, they're talking about what type of books they like, and he mentions that he loves secondhand books in general, and they ask, why secondhand? Because you can tell in advance with a fair amount of certainty if they're worth reading. How so? She said. You can look for breadcrumbs or pieces of crust between the pages, because a book you read while nibbling your food was sure to be good. Or else I look for grease stains, fingerprints, and not too many pages with folded down corners. Where you should look for folding is at the spine. The next book I read was Luster by Raven Leilani. So I got this as a book recommendation as well. I think I was watching a YouTube video, as you are right now. I think this girl was sharing her favorite romance books, but like in the form of literary fiction. Like, she's kind of like me. She likes romance, but she doesn't like them to be the bulk of the story. And that's what it is for me. Also, what really got me was she said that this book was like one of the sexiest books that she's ever read. And after reading this book, I'm like, that's a way to describe it, I guess. So again, I think this was another book that I went into expecting something completely different. I thought the relationship dynamic in this book was going to be like very hot and heavy. And everybody has different opinions. For me, it wasn't like, ooh, this is hot. It It had some moments where maybe some people would think it was hot. I found this book kind of sad, not sexy. It was just sad to me. But what I did enjoy about this book is it felt very realistic. Like, it felt real life. The writer is a magnificent writer, okay? I feel like she really takes you there with the imagery in this book, and I think that was kind of what it was for me. I was like, this is actually some place that I don't want to be, you know? It's following this woman, Edie, who, let's just say, she has a very tough relationship with men. She tends to date a lot of different men, and I think it just sounds like the poor girl's got terrible taste, but it sounds like it's also based off of like her childhood, the traumas that are kind of causing this. She goes into things kind of knowing that it's not going to be good for her, yet she dives in it anyway. But it focuses on the current relationship she's in, which is actually with a married man. I feel like it's also important to say that the main character is a black woman and the married man is a white man. He's very much, you know, has gotten to the point in life where he's very comfortable. Him and his family are very comfortable. Everybody has good jobs. They live in the world of suburbia. And they also have adopted a daughter, actually a little black girl. Okay, I'm sorry. I realized I actually was not talking into the microphone this whole time, so if it sounded crazy, my bad. But yeah, the dynamics in this book were very interesting to read about. Again, this is another book. I don't think I've read anything like this. It was definitely interesting. I just don't think I was in the state to read this sort of book. I think you can read the right books at the wrong time. This was definitely a book that I think I would have enjoyed more if I was in the mood for it. But because I went into it thinking it was gonna be sexy, like I was looking for something like, this is hot, you know? Honestly, just left the book feeling bad for this girl, personally. But I did enjoy it. I rated it a 3.5 star. Don't read it if you're kind of down in the dumps already and you need a little pick-me-up. This is not gonna be your pick-me-up. But if you do need a little pick-me-up, this is the last book that I read in June. And it is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I was really surprised that I ended up loving this book. I think I was asking around, like, from my bookish friends what they recommended for me as far as like a lighthearted summer romance read, but also one that I was going to enjoy, because I've tried one Emily Henry book. I did Beach Read, okay? Oh, I actually did Funny Story too. Was that by her? I enjoyed Funny Story. I did not like Beach Read at all. And so I was very weary with the suggestions, but my friends, they know my reading taste. Even if we don't have the same reading taste, they know how I am. I ended up posting it on my Instagram story, and there were so many people that were like, I love that book, which got me really excited while I was reading it. It was like, this book is getting a lot of good reviews from my peers. It follows this main character, Emma. Her and her bestie are travel nurses. And so, as you know, they go from state to state and they do their job, and then they end up leaving within, I'd say, 3 months. And so Emma, she prefers life to be this way because she's had a really rough go at childhood. I'd say she was neglected thoroughly as a child. And so because she has this not great past, she doesn't feel comfortable staying in one spot. She's always, I guess you could say, trying to run away from her problems. But she's found herself having this problem where she will date guys and it never works out with them, but the woman that they end up with right after her ends up being their soulmate every single time. Like, once she's dumped or she dumps them, they end up finding the one, getting married, and so on. And so she actually ends up coming across this guy with the same exact situation on Reddit. He's just talking about it and he's laughing about it. So she ends up DMing him about the post, like laughing, like, haha, this happens to me too. My friends make fun of me for it. And they kind of bond over that. They decide to meet up. They have this plan that if they date each other, since they both have this issue, they can kind of like cancel out the curse. I think you already know where this is going. What I liked about this book is it did focus in on the summer romance, but it also focused in on the issues that both of these characters were dealing with. It wasn't all about their love life. It also was about like their familial issues and things like that. I really enjoy, and I say this all the time, I enjoy a romance book, but I like it to have some trials and tribulations. While it had the cutesy, fun things, it also had those serious, more deep and thought-provoking topics. It was such a cute book. I loved it. If you have any recommendations on books like this, that you think I would like, please let me know. But that is everything that I've read so far this year. I know I have been deeply neglecting this channel. I wasn't trying to put out a couple of videos and then completely leave. I definitely had more things to say. I have even recorded other things. I just haven't had time to edit them and put them up. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Subscribe, because we will be having more videos, and that will just, you know, notify you when I post another video, since I'm still trying to figure out the schedule for this channel. Let me know if you've read any of these books that I read, if we share the same opinion, if we absolutely do not share the same opinion, or if you have any suggestions for me. I'm gonna go ahead and head out, and I will see you in the next video. Yes, I low-key just gave y'all a whole book review in lingerie. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is kind of short.